Hello and welcome to another session on Kabbalah. We're going to talk about the dragon, the priest, and governments, and how these three are related in the Bible. Part 1. We're now getting familiar with the structure of the Tree of Life, also known as Kabbalah. It's actually broken up into two parts, the first part being called the cycle of creation, and that encompasses the top part of the Kabbalah tree. It starts off in Kether, where all points and potentials and ideas are centered in one point called Kether. It is the center of all possibilities. The next step is to take out and distill one idea out of the ocean of infinite ideas. And the third step is to group them with pre-existing items or objects. Lastly, they are placed into the kingdom. And that ends the creation cycle of the Kabbalah model. The next part of the cycle is called the cycle of assessment. It encompasses the lower part of the tree. It starts off also with the new idea now being placed into the kingdom. But after it's been placed, we must assess what it is and whether or not it's good or not good. We list its pros and cons, both from an emotional side in Netzach and also from a mental standpoint in Hod. After we've listed the pros and cons, we create law to kind of limit what it can do or what it can be until it has been fixed so that it can be perfectly put into the kingdom without any complaint at all. And lastly, it becomes whatever its final state is. Now, we're going to talk about the dragon, which is also the Tanyan in the Bible. The great dragon, which is also called Egypt, the sea serpent, Leviathan, and Satan the devil. They all describe the same process or the same creature. We know that the Tanyan was created on the 5th day in the creation story, and that 5th day corresponds to Hod and Netzach on our Kabbalah model. And it's the 5th level of the first level of assessment. The great dragon in the Bible has 4 functions. First, it's a tester of Israel. He's there to poke and prod and to see exactly how Israel reacts. Now, why is he doing that? He wants to know what is the level of our love. Because the law of Moses, at the end of the day, just as Jesus told everybody, it's love. Love thy neighbor as thyself, and love God. The second function of the dragon is to purify Israel, to remove whatever it is that is keeping them from loving each other. This has been symbolized by the great iron furnace, where metals are thrown in and melted and smelted, and the dross comes up to the top and is able to be scraped off. The next function is to assess the condition of Israel. After all that testing, are they any closer to loving each other? And the last is the destroyer of impurity, to take that which is impure and to make sure that it is gotten rid of. So, as the assessor, tester, and purifier, we see the different scriptures in the Bible that attest to that, where he is called the destroyer. The destroyer is the tester and assessor and purifier of Israel, as spoken of in Jeremiah, where he also, again, like the smelting of the metals, takes the dross and tries to remove it. But in Jeremiah it says no matter how much that destroyer goes about trying to purify Israel, it's the wickedness stays inside of it. Another scripture, or another group of scriptures, calls the dragon Egypt. And the dragon is the great iron furnace for purifying Israel. Another scripture shows Satan as the accuser of the righteous. These sets of scriptures, like in Job, Job is taken before Satan, and it's like, look at my good and faithful servant Job. And Satan says, well, if that's because he's living the best type of life there is. I mean, look, if you put him through the ringer a little bit, he's going to curse you. And so Satan is allowed to do that because that's his job. His job is to assess if our love will stand up to the test of being put through the ringer. And if it can't, then, other steps have to be taken. Paul also suggests that when a man is caught dating his father's wife after his father dies, that he should be given over to Satan so that his flesh dies, but he is saved on the last day. And lastly, we find a strange reference to Leviathan. Leviathan, in the process of breaking and destroying, we purify ourselves. And later on, Job says, he creates an ointment out of the sea. And we know from Revelation that the sea is people, nations, and tongues. We become the ointment to heal ourselves through this breaking process. So, to recap, the dragon is the iron furnace that tests and purifies Israel. But how does he accomplish that? Well, he has these 4 tests. The 4 tests that he performs is the test of famine, the test of pestilence, the test of captivity, and the test of death. These 4 tests also correspond to the 4 lower sephers on the Kabbalah of Had, Netzach, Yesod, and Malkut. In Malkut, we find, just as we discussed in the Kabbalah session on potential, that Malkut is the finite end of something. It is its last state, right before it peters out. It is its end, its destruction. So rightfully, Malkut is the test of death. We also discovered in the same session that Yesod, representing law, is limitation. It is squeezing something and making it conform to a certain set of rules, and that corresponds to captivity. Next we have Had, which is in Kabbalah and amongst the Kabbalists is symbolized by fire. And fire is also substituted for the word pestilence in the references to the 4 tests in the Bible. So fire belongs to Had, and it is pestilence. And one of the things about the Job is that when he went through the test of pestilence, that is, he had the boils in his flesh, it actually changed his mind. So Had also represents a mindset. I mean, he wasn't depressed until he actually had the boils in his flesh. Netzach is symbolized by water, and water is the universal symbol of the dragon itself. The dragon comes from water. He lives in water. Leviathan swims in the seas. The dragon has control over the Nile and such like. The very first thing we find out about the serpent is that when God gives it its punishment for deceiving, he's made to go on his belly. And that doesn't mean that his legs were removed. It means that he no longer follows anything else but his stomach. He's always interested in what he can consume. Okay? His God is his belly. And so rightfully Netzach is famine. But the whole process altogether is known as being in the furnace, and so it is represented by fire. Together, both the creative process and the assessment process is Zion. It is the kingdom in perfect harmony, the victorious woman. One of the things we can look at in the Bible that kind of gives a testament to this process is Romans chapter 11, verse 25 through 32. Lest you be wise in your own conceits, I want you to understand this mystery, brethren. A hardening has come upon part of Israel until the full number of the Gentiles come in. And so all of Israel will be saved. As it is written, the deliverer will come from Zion. He will banish ungodliness from Jacob, and this will be my covenant with them when I take away their sins. As regards the gospel, they are enemies of God for your sake. But as regards election, they are beloved for the sake of their forefathers. For the gifts of the call of God are irrevocable. And just as you were once disobedient to God, but now have received mercy because of their disobedience, so they have now been disobedient, in order that by the mercy shown to you, they also may receive mercy. For God has consigned all men to disobedience, that he may have mercy upon all. Again, if you want to join us on Facebook, we're under Jewish and Christian Symbology. Have a good evening.